will shape with responsibility as young people. With ability, here we are to take the opportunity to raise the flag of East Africa. Together with love, together with peace, together respond to our need, together transform our community as we see light and a brighter future. Let's join hands for youth and women. Let's join hands for youth and women.
Afrika Mashariki yote twaungana, vijana vijana kutoka Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Burundi hadi South Sudan na Rwanda. Twaja pamoja ili fanye nini? Vijana wote.
Thank you very much, Franklin, for that video. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this high-level dialogue. It is so good to have all of you here. I know most of you have a lot of things that you would have been doing apart from being here today, but we thank you that you took your time to actually participate in this dialogue, and for that we highly appreciate you. My name is Stella Agara, and I'm going to be a moderator for the day. I'm going to start with a bit of housekeeping before we proceed. When you logged in, you are muted by the host. I am going to request that you remain muted unless you are given permission to speak. There's going to be very many of us in the room today, and if we are not orderly, we may not be able to have a conversation. Also, only raise up your hand when you need to speak. Osman Harsi, I have not requested for anybody to make any input, so you may want to lower your hand. I don't know if you're aware that you raised up your hand. Yeah. I have a few of my colleagues who are supporting me with the hosting responsibilities today. I have my co-hosts, Beatrice and Kazeneza, who are going to be assisting with the management of the meeting. I have Franklin as the main host, who's going to be handling most of the guest support. And then I have Seba and Clemence in the chat room, who are going to answer any of your critical questions, aside from the mainstream agenda. And I see they've already started giving you the kind of support that they're supposed to be offering there. So let us all cooperate to have a very good conversation, and we are so glad to be hosting you today for this conversation. Moving on from there, I'd like to do a quick introduction of why we are gathered today, and then I'm going to invite a team of very inspirational speakers who are going to be addressing us today. The theme of this particular dialogue is basically leadership for the Africa we want. We are convening here today to have a conversation about the type of leadership we want, or the type of leadership we should have in order for us to achieve the Africa we want. But second and most important, we are convening to have a conversation about what kind of skills we need to develop to ensure that then this leadership exists in Africa. The conversation on the skills is extremely important because this process is supposed to culminate in the development of a manual. Prior to this process, we participated, we rather engaged in a process to develop, to identify what's happening in the continent. And we conducted two studies. We conducted a scoping study in which we were reviewing to see what problems exist. Are they addressing the problem sufficiently, or are there gaps? We established that there are a number of programs that exist in the continent. They are not homegrown. They mostly are originated from outside the continent. And a good number of them are able to reach many young people in terms of training and capacity building for leadership. However, most of the vulnerable groups still don't have access to the trainings because they're not broadly accessible to everyone. So mostly we found that young women and people with disability and a few vulnerable groups, especially rural youth, struggle to access these programs. One of the recommendations that we carried out of that is that we need to have a program that is homegrown, originally from Africa, and accessible to the entire continent, and even cheaper to access for the entire continent. Then we conducted a tracer study to establish what training programs exist, and we have a whole list of the tracer studies. My colleague Ivan is going to be talking about what we found out from that study later on in the program. So based on those findings, we then embarked on a process to conduct regional consultations to find out from the youth. Now that we have established there's a need for a training manual for leadership development, what then would you want to see in this training manual? And so this is where we decided to go through a process of regional consultations. We conducted 5 regional consultations, started with East Africa, went to Northern Africa. We then moved to Central Africa. We conducted Central Africa. And on Monday, we had the last conversation in Southern Africa. In those conversations, we were trying to identify what you'd like to see in the training, what topics you'd like to see covered. We also inquired from you if there are guest speakers, role models, faculty, who would you prefer to see in that team? And then, of course, we inquired from you on what experiential learning mechanisms you'd want to engage in. And we got quite some feedback from the youth. Some of you are present here today who participated in these consultations, and we shall continue with the conversation today as we proceed. These consultations were all conducted in partnership with collaborating entities that we are working with. In Eastern Africa, we had our main partner as ULEAD assisting us with these consultations. This is the East Africa Community Youth Ambassadors Platform. In Northern Africa, we were working with the Nile Youth Development Agenda. In Central Africa, we were working with the J Acts. In West Africa, we were working with the Youth Hub. Youth Hub Africa, and in Southern Africa, we were working with the South African Youth Forum, and also working with the South African SADC Youth Council. All these organizations came together to support, the process of consultation, and that is how we are here today. I want to appreciate all of them for the good work they did. I want to appreciate them for the support they have given us, even for the mobilization that they have done for this meeting today. We are extremely grateful, and we continue to appreciate the input you're making. Without much further ado, I would like to invite our first speaker for the opening remarks, who is also the Executive Director of MSTCDC. Those of you who are not aware or did not pick it up from the videos, MSTCDC is the home of ULEAD, and our Executive Director is in the room and to address us. Very inspirational lady. You will understand why ULEAD is thriving at MSTCDC. Ms. Makena Mubobia, we're ready for you. Ms. Makena? Franklin, please assist me. Franklin, please assist me highlight Ms. Makena.
Hello, Stella, she seems to have dropped. Oh, she's back, she's back.
Okay, great. Great, Ms. McKenna, while you're away, I had just introduced you, and I had informed the audience that ULEAD, MSTCDC is the home of ULEAD, and part of the reason why we are thriving is because we have a very inspirational executive director who is in support of the youth and has a deep insight on the youth. So we are ready for you when you are. Great, we're ready for you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Stella, sorry, I missed out. My connection was so bad. Is it my time to say good morning?
Yes, it is your turn. I had just finished introducing you when your connection messed you up, but we are ready for you.
my internet is not favoring me. Just give me half a minute to see if I can sort it out.
We hear you very well.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Stella. And sorry, I just changed rooms from a different meeting, and I think the reason I'm having the connection. Just so happy that finally we are getting ourselves on the final call for the leadership. And like I said, that I personally believe that leadership with the young people is the way to go, and particularly for Africa. We have the potential, and I said, yes, I'm a grandmother, but I'm youthful at heart, and so that's why I push for leadership, and leadership with integrity, leadership with a vision, leadership with values, and leadership that really wants to make a difference. And so as we put ourselves together for what this means for Africa, I just want to say thank you so much. And we are so happy that MSDCDC is in the middle of this because this is what we believe in. We believe that leadership and governance must be part and parcel of every aspect of life that we're doing. And I think even if I stretched myself broader into thinking about Africa 2063, I see 60% of leadership in political leadership coming from the young people. And this is young people with a vision, young people with values, young people who are practicing the servant leadership, sacrificing for the sake of humanity and for the sake of making sure that the voice of the young people is taking lead, either in decision-making, in resource mobilization, in human rights based. And I believe some of the things that we are seeing happening, if we develop ourselves a training and people that are walking the talk of the training, then it means that that we will see even the difference before the 2063. So we can actually bring our vision closer to us so that by 2063, then we are seeing the vision and the change that we want, having already started and taking place in the next decade or so. So I would also wish that we don't see the leadership in the many years to come, but in the short term, so that we start making structural changes now that will give us the potential and change that we want to see. So thank you once again. And I really want to say that I wish ourselves the very best in what we are going to do and what we
Thank you very much, Ms. Mandela. We appreciate those remarks that you have made, and thank you for cutting us off on that. This project is a partnership between MSDCDC you lead and the African Governance Architecture, the Common Market for East and Southern Africa, as well as the Swiss Agency for Development and Innovation. All our partners are here today to support this process. This shows you the kind of commitment.
Stella, I think those who have their mics on are causing you some disturbance, so we cannot hear you clearly. Maybe we could request those who are not using the microphone to mute it, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sala. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. I had requested at the beginning of the meeting that we all mute our microphones, please.
Stella,
Yeah.
Stella, I think to the contrary, you have moved position or something happened to your microphone.
Okay. Let me. Is that better?
Yes, but still it's not as it was at the start.
Let me try and speak louder then.
No, it is okay. Proceed.
So, like I was saying, let us keep our microphones off unless you have been requested to speak so that we don't interfere with the communication. I was saying that this project is a partnership between the African governance architecture at the Africa Union, the Common Market for Africa, as well as the Swiss Development Corporation. And MSTCC has been brought in as a technical support for the project in this partnership. The Swiss Agency for Development Cooperation is represented in this meeting by Madame Annunciata Ndikumasabo, the Senior Regional Governance Advisor. And now we're going to give her a chance to make her remarks. Madame Annunciata, is it ready for you?
Thank you very much, Stella. Good morning, everyone. As Stella has said, I'm Annunciata Ndikumasabo, Senior Regional Governance Advisor for the SDC. SDC welcomes this roundtable and the discussion on such an important topic on the role of the youth in entrenching the leadership we aspire to attain the vision of the Africa we want. This topic is relevant and timely as Africa has the youngest population globally. Such conversation with and by young people surely feeds efforts to achieve the demographic dividends. The SDC shares this global recognition that more attention should be paid to young people in development agenda to make them the driving forces for peace and development. While the big share in the population pyramid is an asset, it can also be a risk. So pro-youth policies geared to promoting youth leadership and making them catalyzers of political and development dynamic in Africa exist. However, we think that there is still a gap between policies and their implementation. Empowering young people and increasing their participation in entrenching democratic values and accountable governance is at the core of this SDC-supported project. In this regard, it seeks to promote youth leadership through capacity building and exposure to opportunities that would allow them to achieve their full potential. Good results have been so far achieved from previous fora, also done with your lead. And we hope today's intergenerational conversation would give insights and inspiration for building the leadership we want for the Africa, the leadership we need for the Africa we want. Thank you so much. And I'm really looking forward to our discussion.
Thank you very much, Madam Annunciata, for those remarks. We really appreciate the kind of commitment that the Swiss Agency for Development Cooperation has towards youth empowerment, and especially the commitment they have towards ensuring that the leadership is developed amongst young people in the continent. And we are extremely grateful that you could set time to come and be with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, I have the honor of inviting a very, very inspirational speaker next, who is also our team leader for this process. We look to him for inspiration and advice and guidance. And he's also the head of the African Governance Architecture at the AU. Help me welcome His Excellency Ambassador Salah, who's going to be making remarks on behalf of the AU.
Stella, thank you very much for the usually classified as excellent moderation. So thank you so much for taking the lead this morning and for bringing us together and this bright sun of Africa. I'm sure it is sunny almost everywhere in Africa today. So let me begin by saying good morning. It might be afternoon in some other part of Africa, and it also might be a bit late in the evening in the diaspora. So, dear brothers and sisters, welcome to this high-level continental roundtable dialogue on the leadership for Africa we want. the manual that we've been working on for the last few months. This Continental Roundtable is not the first. It could be the last in this process after we met at the regional level, starting from East Africa all the way to Southern Africa, crossing by North, Central, and West, in an attempt that brought the African Union Commission as the Continental Organization, along with COMESA, the one of the regional economic communities, with the support and leadership of very youthful and young organizations that is you lead, as well as MSTCDC, in this process, which meant for it to end by having or by developing a manual that will assist in our attempt to have a reference that will assist in the development of leadership in Africa. Let me welcome Her Excellency, the Secretary General of COMESA, who is with us this morning or today, as well as Professor Lumumba as a guest speaker. And with the presence of these two renowned Africans, Pan-Africanists, it will be not really necessary for me to speak or to have a very long speech. We are very honored and delighted to be part of this process as the AGA on behalf of the African Union. And of course, we are all guided in this process by the noble goal of implementing our Agenda 2063 for building the Africa we want. And I'm quite happy that finally we came to realize this dream that being as part of our roadmap as AGA Secretariat for the longest. The dream is to develop a manual that will assist in creating and developing leadership across the board amongst our African youth. Why we are targeting our African youth? The answer is very simple. We all know that Africa is the youngest, the youthful continent among all other continents in the world, with a population of almost 65% of it below the age of 35. So therefore, it is absolutely important that we empower the youth to lead this process of developing the continent, simply because they are the majority of the African population. Having this manual will certainly assist in creating leadership. And we are not talking about only leadership in the political arena or the political field, but we are trying to really creating leadership across the board. If you are a doctor, we want you to lead within your field. If you are a teacher, we want you to lead within your field. If you are a nurse, we want you to lead within your field. If you are a farmer, we want you to lead within your field. So we want really to create leadership across the board that will together and jointly lead the process of developing the continent we want, the Africa we deserve, and the Africa that belongs to us all as African people. And why we are targeting youth again? It is again simply because we believe that Africa has its youth as the most important assets of all. We are not depending on our natural resources as much as we depend on our youth, simply because our youth are more important than anything else that Africa has. So therefore, today we are quite happy that we come to the end of part one of this journey, the development of this important manual with inputs and comments that we receive from across the continent, from each and every corner of the continent, from comments that we we're very happy to receive from even from the grassroots level. And we hope now that we have inputted all the inputs and all the comments that we receive from the African youth. So then we can embark together on the second stage or the second step of this process, which is basically to implement what we have in this manual. We don't want this manual to be shelved by all means. We want this manual to be available to all and every African youth, particularly African women, so we can create leadership among women to be part of the governance process of our continent, the governance process at the regional level as well as the national level. Before I end, let me task you with this. Once we end with this roundtable, we will then announce the beginning of stage 2, which is basically to implement this manual. The training will differ from region to another. Some regions, they need training programs. Some regions, they need technical support. Some part of Africa, they need more than that. So please, let's try to put our heads together to identify the needs that will allow us to move ahead with the implementation of this manual. With that, we will be able to make sure that we are really benefiting from this manual, that we are creating the leadership we want and the leadership we need to lead us in this journey of developing the Africa we want. I always remind our youth that you are not the leaders of tomorrow. You are the leaders of today as well as tomorrow. So please claim that responsibility of being the leadership of today as well as the leadership of tomorrow. Let me end by thanking each and every one of you for being part of this process. But I can't really end without thanking our colleagues from COMESA for dedicating their time and efforts to support this process, as well as our colleagues from the Swedish Foundation for supporting this process financially. And also ULEAD and MSTCDC for leading us in this process. And finally, let me thank my two colleagues in the AGA Secretariat, Magda Tessema and Hagar Azuz, two young, vibrant young ladies, leaders in their own way, for also leading us as AGA Secretariat to be part of this process. Thank you so much for being part of this process. And you are, as of today, an ambassador of this manual. Please, whenever you get a chance, share information about this manual within your networks and within the organizations that you are partnering with. Let's together put our heads together, our hearts together, our hands together to build the Africa we want, the Africa we deserve. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for those remarks. Thank you very much for your vote of confidence always. And we also appreciate your team, Magda and Hagar, who have been quite supportive throughout this process of planning. We appreciate also the support that you're getting from your office and your consistent availability to support our work every time we convene. We are proud to associate with your organization, and we are proud to associate with you. I'm going to take this conversation to the next level. We are now officially allowed to continue with the business of the day. And for this reason, I'm going to quickly invite some of the inspirational speakers that you had His Excellency Ambassador Salah mentioning in his speech that are joining us today. A few years ago, right after I had finished high school, I joined a movement and we were trying to support child rights or something like that. And I invited one gentleman to come and launch our website. We had set up a website and there was a maximum of about 15 of us, very young people, very motivated, but with really nothing. And at the time when I was inviting this gentleman to come and launch our website, He was a commissioner at the Constitution Review Commission in Kenya, and he graciously came for the meeting. 3 days ago, we found ourselves in a similar situation where I had to make a phone call and make a request again of this very same gentleman on very short notice, because the youth had voted in our consultations overwhelmingly in support of him as a role model and as a mentor for this training program, and to be involved as a role model and as a guest speaker for the entire training program that His Excellency Ambassador Salah has spoken about. And again, he graciously accepted on very short notice. We are not proud of the fact that we reached out to him on short notice, but we are very grateful that we can associate with him today and that he's a part of our program today. Help me welcome Professor P.L.O. Lumumba, a renowned Pan-Africanist, a professor of public law, and one man who has consistently spoken for the interests of this continent, consistently highlighted the need for integrity in our leadership, and he's definitely the loudest voice that we are hearing in the continent as far as matters of proper leadership is concerned. Professor, we are very proud to have you here and very proud to associate with you. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Stella, and let me thank those who have spoken before me, and also thank the young men and women who have taken time to be present in what I consider to be an important gathering of young Africans. Let me start by saying that we as a continent find ourselves at crossroads. And there is a sense in which when one finds oneself in such a situation, one may give up. Yet the truth be told, it is in times such as those that the very best out of us ought to come out. You are organizing this conference at a time when the continent is beaten in terms of economy, because of COVID, is going through a robust process of vaccination. Yet Africa relies on the kindness of other countries. You are doing it at a time when the continent of Africa, people killed in Niamey, in Niger, going on in Mozambique, Darfur. You'll be aware of the unease in Somalia. You'll be aware of what is happening in the Eastern Congs, which is the spirit even of the most optimistic. But yet, in the midst of all those, there are also good things that are happening in Africa. It is during this year that the Africa Continental Free Trade Area has been launched with her secretariat in Accra, Ghana. It is during this very same year that we have seen one of our own, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, being elevated to be the head of the WTO. It is during this very time that Winnie Byanyima is the head of UNAIDS. It is during this very time that we see Kinwumi Adesina remaining as the head of the African Development Bank. It is during this time that we see young people organizing themselves, and not only within the continent, but outside of the continent. Africans in the diaspora are beginning to that indeed we are in a good space. And during times such as these, it is very important to realize that we can make our country and our continent great. And one of the things that I've realized as I grow older is that we as young people have the great, that if as a young person you are not a revolutionary, there is something very simply means that you have the spirit and the interest to change in a positive manner the things that you are engaged in. And in doing those things, you will make mistakes. You will make mistakes. There is not a single one of us here who was not made of good intention, then they become learning points. It is also important to realize that individually we can do very little. But if we organize ourselves in the manner that you have, then the possibility of changing this continent grows. You must ask yourself today is what it is that we can do. I remember reading several years ago the words of the American President Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And he said, and I paraphrase, it is not the critic who matters at critical times. And rise again, not professional fault finders whose only claim is to find fault, and constantly they live between the twilight of victory and defeat. But it is important that we should critique, and when we critique, we should have and offer solutions. You young men and women are in a unique position. A unique position because you are endowed with knowledge. A unique position because you live in an era where technology is available and you can connect in the manner that you are connecting now. You know, many times when I think about what is happening now, we are engaged through Zoom and through this media. I asked myself, how did Kwame Nkrumah and Nyerere and Modibo and Ben Bella and all these great people do it when there was no communication? Yet they appear to have done it more effectively than we do now. And the answer is, there was something in their hearts and in their minds, the desire to do good. And this to me is the most important thing, that we must be animated by the desire to do good, the desire to change the continent, to change our agriculture, to change our education, to change our technology, to make our innovation be the things that change people's lives, give place to ensure our health systems are working, to ensure that our infrastructure is working, to ensure that we energize young men and women across the continent to participate in so that there is the vote that they can offer the very best. A group of young men and women who are differently motivated, and I have no doubt one working in the year 1963 said the following immortal words: must unite the Osage. Africa needs a new type of citizen, a dedicated, modest, honest, informed man and woman a man who submerges himself or herself in the service of the nation, a man who abhors greed and detests vanity, a new type of man whose humility is his strength and whose integrity is his greatness. I'm now urging you to be such young men and women, the men that the Osagie for Kwame Nkrumah talked about. Mwalimu Julius Kambarage Nyerere said that if there is any secret for development, it is people do not have the capacity. For how long are our roads going to be built by Chinese? For how long are vaccines going to be made in the United States to sell as fish? For how long are we going to be entertained by Hollywood and not Nollywood or Riverwood or Bongowood? For how long are we going to know the names of every player in La Liga and Premier League, and we do not know even a single team in Guinea, Conakry, or in Burkina Faso? For how long are we going to celebrate what is done by other civilizations while we deride that which we are doing? These are the things that we are urging you to do. It cannot be denied. And allow me to be uncharitable to the African Union. The African Union has remained eloquently silent in time. The megaphone of this country. The African Union has remained when it ought to be revealed. The African Union has become when it ought to be active. Has too long relied on funding from the Chinese and from the European Union, and as the old saying goes, he who pays the piper calls the tune. It is not lost on me that indeed the African Union headquarters is built by the Chinese. Not lost on me that once control in Addis Ababa by the Chinese. It is not Center for Disease Control is being financed by the Americans. When you can't finance even the most basic of things, control your own agenda. You young men and women to be the engine that will change Africa. We can do it. If little Cuba can make, if Vietnam after the war can be the economy that it is, after being bombed down to the economy, if South Korea after the war in 1953 can be where it is, why can't we as a continent, 2 billion people with intellectual spread from Nigeria to Ghana to Kenya to Tanzania to Uganda to South Africa to Malawi to Algeria to Tunisia and everywhere else, why can't we do all these things? We can hold seminars and seminars are good, but I think the time has come that Africa must even consider putting a pause on the seminars, particularly the African Union, and simply say, what is it that we can do to implement the resolution that we have made? We now have Africa Agenda 2063, but if you read the statement of Kwame Nkrumah in 1963 on the 20 days of May in 1900 and by Ethiopia, there is nothing that is being said in Africa Agenda 2063. When you look at the Lagos Plan of Action of 1980, there is nothing new that is being said. I am saying that it is you who must do it. And I hope that one of the resolutions that you'll arrive at this soon is to create African Union. An African shadow African Union, not African Union as is present, but to keep it on check. That union will be composed of young men and women. It will mirror what is happening in the African Union, and on a daily basis ask of the leadership of the African Union, what are you doing? Last year you declared of the guns. Did the council, has he visited Mozambique? Has he visited Niamey? Has he visited Eastern Congo? Has he visited Somalia? Has he visited Korea? Has he visited Burkina Faso? Has he visited Central African Republic? Visited all these points? Visited the countries which leadership? Has he been Kuma in Kenya? Has he visited to see what is happening? Lost their president? Has he visited Tanzania? Has he been present where he ought to be present? He has not been. You, leader of the African Union, be sitting in Ethiopia and visiting only the soft spots. You ought to be in the arena of action. And this is what we want. Hope that during this year, Tshisekedi will ask of Tshisekedi, energize the union. Also ask President about that during his second term, energy. And when we say these things, it's not because we are opposing him. We want him to succeed, because when he succeeds, we succeed. And when he fails, we fail. And we have entrusted him with that position because we hold the view that his experience in Chad put him in a good place, and that he has made enough mistakes and he has learned through them and of leading this continent. This is so, you young men and women this morning, let us do what my countryman Ngugi wa Thiong'o has told us many times. Let us decolonize our minds. Let us be able to demonstrate to the Caucasian that we have come of age, that we are not going to see dying in Lampedusa trying to cross the Mediterranean Union to engage in what is essentially modern day slavery. Let us tell the Americans that they are not going to their embassies when we simply, let us tell the British use their position to humiliate Africa. Let's tell the Australians that there is something good in Africa. And I want you young men and women to have as your clarion call that we should eliminate Africa, so that if you want to move from Djibouti to Dakar in Senegal, you can do so. It can be done, but it will only be done if you are organized. You must be organized, because when you organize, you will achieve, not believe. And I'm urging you, go out there and change Africa. You know, when I look at the age of those who are in the forefront of the leadership in 1960, they were your age. Always ask yourself, how old was Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah? How old was Nyerere? How old was Ahmed Sékou Touré? How old was Modibo Keïta? How old was Ahmed Ben? How old was Kenneth Kaunda? How old was Thomas Sankara? How old was Apollo Milton Obote in his good days? How old was Agostinho Neto? How old was Nelson Mandela? How old were all these people when they were in the forefront of the leadership? How old was Thomas Joseph Mboya of Kenya? How old were all these people? They were your age, and they were able to move the mountain that was the. It is your duty now to move is the neo-colonizer. And I have no doubt in my mind that you can achieve it. Is that great Nigerian Chinua Achebe, writing in 1958 at age 22, he wrote his greatest books, Things Fall Apart. Or he poses where the young suckers banana dies. We are the old banana. Rise up and I have no doubt it. Our duty to ensure that we hand over the baton, and remember always that intergenerational race, we run our race. Behold, Africa can and will. As I conclude, now, this country, this was the repository of some of on earth. The best was longer than the mathematics taught in Timbuktu before and before the Greeks knew about. Come from a great continent that is great, and I want again. So, ladies, wish you a successful conference, great conversations, doubt in my mind that you can achieve. And I want to hear out of these engagements that you have a plan of action which is time-bound, a plan of action which is time-sensitive, a plan of action of what you want to do, and we will be there to make our contribution, and I can guarantee you that it will be well with you. May God bless you, and may you have a successful conference, and may you be the great young men and women that Africa has been waiting for. Have a good day. Have a great conference.
Thank you very much, Professor. Thank you very much, Professor, for those very inspirational words, for the challenge that you have given us. We may have been losing you a bit because of network at some point, but then we have actually picked up all the challenges that you have given us. One of the commitments that we are making out of this conversation is that we are not just meeting, we are working to develop a leadership training manual that is eventually going to be used by young people, by youth organizations, by actors within the continent to start preparing the kind of leadership we need to achieve the Africa we want, the leadership that you have very eloquently described in this conversation. Indeed, Africa needs a different kind of citizen, and we are ready to prepare that kind of citizen if we work together to develop this training manual. Sincere appreciations to you and your office and Amos for all the support that you've given us and for coming up to actually make this presentation. I am aware that Professor is in a hurry and may not be able to stay here for longer. But then, Professor, you'd be pleased to go through the comment section and note that a number of the participants were agreeing with you on most of the proposals you have made, and we definitely are going to be engaging you some more as the project proceeds. I am now going to invite again another very inspirational speaker who is a discussant in this conversation and is going to be helping us analyze if the kind of leadership that we need for the Africa we want is the type that Professor P.L.O. has described eloquently. Then what kind of skills are we supposed to be developing in order to be able to attain this kind of leadership? What kind of skills are we supposed to be imparting amongst the young people to ensure that then when the time comes for them to be in office, when the time comes for them to be in office in their national governments, in the regional governments, in the AU in future, what type of skills do we want them to carry into those offices in order to deliver the Africa we want? The speaker I'm about to invite is a businessman. He's also a social entrepreneur who's engaging in a lot of activities, especially in Western Africa, to provide solutions for Africa, and is a philanthropist by excellence. Our guest is also the founder of TAF Africa, TAF Global Africa. Help me invite Mustafa Njie, who is going to be a discussant and help us think through some of the skills that we are supposed to be developing. Mr. Mustafa, we thank you so much for honoring our invite. We thank you so much for honoring it in such a short notice. We could not even believe you said yes, but the audience will be pleased to know that you are also called Mr. Youthman, and therefore your support for the youth is unequivocal. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much, Stella. Let me first start by thanking your organization, the Youth Lead, for inviting me to be a discussant on this roundtable virtual conference. It is an honor, it is a great honor and a privilege. And as you know, I did everything possible to be here, to change my flights, so that I can do this. And let me first start by recognizing the previous speaker, especially Professor P.L.O. Lumumba, who's a brother and has been been an inspiration not only to the youth, but to Africans. I think he represents the modern Pan-Africanist. We share quite a lot of values, and what he has just said, I mean, I'll quickly, go through, some of the key issues that he's raised. And let me also thank the previous speakers before him, for taking time to be on this. I'll very quickly just, take some talking points. He's spoken about, taking up technology, the advantage of technology, because here we are, in different countries, in different states, different time zones, but we're able to communicate. That's a very good example. The medium that we're using to communicate, we should really take advantage of it as Africans, as young Africans. And then he mentioned the issue of the desire to do good. You must desire to do good. I love that. And the desire to effect change. Changes must happen. We must not always be dogmatic, stay in one position. It's only through change that we can make a difference. And as young people, you need to do this. I mean, then he called for the new type of citizenry, of integrity. Actually, when I come later on my own recommendations and the values that I want the youth to aspire and to take up, that takes number one, integrity. Then he tells us about the need to focus on celebrating Africans and Africa. We must take ownership. We must be proud of ourselves. So that's excellent. And then he spoke about Africa that must begin to put in place plans to execute, the plan of action of the African Union Agenda 63. I will also quote, from the Africa Union Agenda 63, that African leaders should be at the spot of action. So we must be action-oriented. That he mentioned. And then he says, let's decolonize our minds. Youth must remain organized in order to achieve more and achieve a greater Africa. I think the conference also, he said, must put in place a plan of action. So we're not only here now, as we do these days, busy in Zoom meetings all the time, but we must have plans of action and timelines and make sure we execute it. So it is not just another conference, another meeting, or another initiative. So in addition to all these points, already expanded by Professor Lumumba, it is important to state that the Africa we want has been captured in the African Union Agenda 2063 document. Or amongst its 7 aspirations, number 6 captures the topic of the day, even though all 7 aspirations are interconnected and must be sought in tandem. The goal of aspiration number 6 is, and I'll quote, an Africa whose development is people-driven, relying on the potential of the African people, particularly its women and youth, and caring for the children. This clearly is a model of the Africa we want. From the above, it can be deduced that delivering an Africa that we want must be delivered.
Mr. Mustafa, you got muted.
Oh, sorry. Okay, I didn't realize I touched the mute button. At one point, I think where I said that from the above, it can be deduced that delivering an Africa that we want must be deliberately driven by a purposeful leadership founded on certain values in order to experience a paradigm shift from what we have always experienced towards experiencing a purposeful leadership. We must acquire skills centered around the 12 cardinal values. Rather than giving you the skills that we require, I would now focus on the values that you require. So regardless of any skill that you have, because some of these skills, are developed. You get trained. Some of these skills, you are born with them, but must be developed. So once you acquire the skills, or in the process of acquiring the skills, there are certain values that you must have as leaders. And what I've done, because I'm dealing with youth like myself, I have coded it. I know that you like to see codes. Huh? I've coded it to be ice fade chip, as in ICE. Remember that ICE, ice, FADE, fade, and then chip with a double C, CCHIP. So if those are the values I want you to have inculcated in yourself, engraved in your brains, and I will list them out. So first, as in first is integrity. That you must have integrity. 2, you must have commitment. 3, you must have empathy. 4, you must be a futuristic visionary. Futuristic vision is key in leadership. 5, accountability. You must be accountable. 6, decision making. You must take decisions. And then 7, empowerment. 8, confidence. You must have confidence in yourselves. And then 9, be a big communicator. 10, honesty. You must be honest in everything that you do in life as you take the mantle of leadership. You must be innovative. Innovation is 11. And 12, passionate. Be passionate in what you are doing. Don't just get up because you're doing it, because somebody else is doing it. So please remember what I've just told you. Ice, fade, chip. These 12 core values are the values that you must have as leaders. And then in my role as a lead entrepreneur in the continent, I have tested these 12 cardinal values of leadership, which have now been designed into a training program or a curriculum deployed by the Tough Africa Foundation to build a generation of new leaders in different spheres of life. So we are already doing it. Actually, we are in our second cohort in the Gambia on a leadership academy, and these are the values that we teach them. And what we do is we bring in renowned Gambians, and in every topic, it gives them a lecture. And we train them through, after 1 year, then we get them to be fellows of the academy. Some of the channels of Tough Africa Foundation where we have tested the cardinal values include: 1, the Tough Leadership Academy, which is called TAFLA, I just mentioned it. The Continental Networking Tough Conference called ToughCon, and it is held annually in the Gambia in December. I'm sure we'll find a way of connecting with your organizations so that we can have delegates invited from you. Then we have the Entrepreneurial and Skills Development Training Program with an annual intake of close to 50. We just started a program now of 25 together with ITC. Then we have the bi-weekly online lecture by renowned speakers to promote knowledge sharing and exchange. Then we have the annual Tough Startups Competition event, whose eventual winners are given startup capital for their respective winning ventures. So this is from our foundation, and what we do, we give the star prize at $20,000. The second prize gets $10,000, the third gets $5,000, and then there are consolation prize of $1,000 each. So it's a big competition, and we get the youth to be innovative, to come up with ideas, what they've been doing. And then there's an independent panel that takes this up and gives them the prizes. Beyond these, we have established online footprint for regular shares and exchanges of ideas, information, etc. All in the firm belief that leadership is no longer top-down vertical paternalism in which the leader is only followed and not second-guessed or questioned in any way. In this modern era, leaders are expected to bring everyone on board, be inspiring, be able to persuade, share, explain and justify actions and decisions, as well as model the values and beliefs they espouse to carry people along or be carried where better ideas emerge from elsewhere. These values we must all espouse and inculcate in our youth for a successful continent. In closing, I must state that while I support and encourage the concept of youth leadership, youth who should lead Africa must possess the above mentioned cardinal values to create and drive the purposeful leadership that Africa and Africans earnestly yearn for. Otherwise, persons of all the generations who possess the cardinal values can help Africa and Africans achieve the dream of the Africa we want. A good example of this was in Malaysia, where you saw Mahathir Mohamad, who came back at the age of 93 to take the mantle of leadership in the country. So, ladies and gentlemen, my fellow youth, I thank you so much for this, and I avail myself for any future engagement that you may call, I may be called upon. Thank you very much, and God bless you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gutman. Thank you so much for taking your time to speak to us today. You may not be aware, Mr. Njie was supposed to be traveling today, and he had to change his air ticket just to come and address us today. He's a very, very busy man, and we appreciate the fact that you've taken your time and actually given us quite some useful values that we should aspire for. Eyes fed cheap, you say, and cheap with the double C. I like them in the comment section. Remember them. And when we do the training manual, we shall ensure that then we are proposed. We highly appreciate you. We highly appreciate your people and your office for all the support they have given us in trying to get you here today. Thank you very much, Mr. Njie, and we wish you safe travels if you leave us in the middle of the conversation.
Thank you. God bless.
Bless you too. When I first heard about this event on Twitter, the comment I got was that someone said, I see the panel is very youthful. And I told the gentleman that we have 17 speakers today, and the 3 that had posted were only just a few that are going to be in the opening of the meeting. And this is the moment when now we bring in the young voices, because this is an intergenerational dialogue. We want to have the voices of experienced people, and then bring in the voices of young people and the innovative voices of leadership program proprietors into this conversation. But before I proceed, allow me to invite my colleague, the director of ULEAD, to come and provide some guidance on how we are conducting ourselves in social media. I know Franklin has been posting the details on the chat room, but then it's important that we direct you on how we want this to be done. Ivan, if you're ready, we are ready for you. Ivan? Okay, if Ivan is not ready, allow me to recognize the presence of someone who should have actually spoken before we did the keynote address, but we were not aware that they were in the room. We have just learned that our guest is here, one of our main partners in this collaboration. We have someone in the room representing the Secretary General of the Common Market for East and Southern Africa, who is going to be addressing us shortly. I was supposed to invite her to speak after His Excellency Ambassador Sala spoke, but then we were not aware that they had confirmed and attended the meeting. I know, Madam Beatrice Amusonde, you are in the room. If you are ready for us now, you can take the floor now to make your remarks and just give your reflections on what has just transpired in the previous speeches that we've just had. My apologies for not having been aware that you were in the room. Welcome. Madam Beatrice, we're ready for you.
Thank you. Thank you, Stella. Please confirm that. Are you able to get me?
I hear you loud and clear.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Ms. McKenna Mwabobia, MSDC DC Executive Director, representative of the East African Youth Leadership Program, URID, hosted by the MS Training Center for Development Cooperation and the East African Community in Arusha. Representatives of the Swiss Agency for Development Cooperation, Madam Anosiata Ndikumasabo, who is the Senior Regional Governance Advisor, East and Southern Africa Division. Your Excellency, Ambassador Sala, Head of the African Governance Architecture at the African Union, headquarters in Addis Ababa, distinguished speakers, and ladies and gentlemen. It is with a great sense of honor that I welcome you to the high-level Continental Virtual Roundtable Dialogue on the Leadership for the Africa We Want. This is supported by the African Union Long-Term Development Vision, enshrined in the Africa Agenda 2063, which identifies a strong political leadership fully committed to development, democratic rule, equity, justice, and rule of law, as it is a key factor in attaining the goals of an integrated and prosperous and peaceful Africa, driven by its own citizens and representing a dynamic force in the global arena. Ladies and gentlemen, Africa is the world's youngest continent. The previous speakers have already alluded to that, and it has the highest rate of the population growth that is expected to double by 2050. With 65% of the total population estimated to be below the age of 35 years, and over 35% being between the ages of 15 and 35 years. This makes Africa the home to the world's majority young, according to the United Nations and the African Union Youth Division. Ladies and gentlemen, this presents Africa with a huge opportunity to grow politically, socially, and economically by drawing from the potential of young women and men to drive the change and the transformation of Africa. The meeting we are having today is jointly implemented under the African Union AGA Secretariat and COMESA Joint Project on Youth Engagement in Democratic Governance and Socio-Economic Development Processes in Africa, supported by the Swiss Agency for Development Cooperation. The high-level Continental Virtual Roundtable Dialogue on the Leadership for the Africa We Want was preceded by a series of 5 regional consultations conducted successfully and aimed at supporting the development of the Pan-African Young Leaders Training Program Manual in a co-creation process, which includes data collection, research studies, and surveys in all the parts of Africa, and with the participation of young people from all the member states of Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, it is therefore imperative that the process of developing a new set of African leaders with the transformative skills necessary to drive the implementation of the African Union Agenda 2063 is impressed on the undergoing development of the COMESA Youth Engagement Strategy. This process ultimately aims to enhance opportunities for young leaders to sharpen their leadership skills through participatory democracy and governance, while inculcating values and concepts of effective democratic and transformational leadership, hence contributing to the overarching goal of increasing participation, entrenching democratic values, culture, and the promotion of accountable governance in the continent. This will in turn strengthen their participation in political and state building processes. Ladies and gentlemen, furthermore, we encourage our speakers and participants to actively engage in this process which directly contributes to the 7 aspirations enshrined in the African Union Agenda 2063, with particular emphasis on aspirations 3 and 6, which are on an Africa of good governance, democracy, respect for human rights, justice, and the rule of law, being driven by the potential of its women and youth. As the manual will in particular be a continental resource for leadership training on democratic governance and socio-economic development processes. The training manual and subsequent training program will work to increase the leadership capacity through a combined nature and nurture approach, whereby targeted and conscious training programs are provided for the next generation of young leaders with specific mentoring and coaching arrangement. Ladies and gentlemen, before I conclude, I wish to recognize with immense gratitude the support received from our partner, the Swiss Development Agency for Cooperation, SDC, on their support of implementation of this important project that is jointly implemented by COMESA and the AU AGA Secretariat on youth engagement in democratic governance and socio-economic development processes in Africa. I also wish to appreciate our partner, MSDCD, ULEAD team members for their support on the co-creation process and execute.
Beatrice, you got muted. Please unmute.
Oh my God.
Sorry for that. Someone was making some noise in there.
Okay, let me start again where in the last part of my speech. Ladies and gentlemen, before I conclude, I would like to recognize with immense gratitude the support received from our partner, the Swiss Agency for Development Cooperation, SDC, on their support of implementation of this joint program between African Union AGA Secretariat and COMESA on the youth engagement in democratic governance. I also wish to appreciate our partner, MSTCDC ULEAD team members for their support on the co-creation process and executing the training manual. I also would like to recognize the efforts of the African Governance Architecture AGA Secretariat and extend my gratitude to all our speakers and participants. As we deliberate today, I invite you all to use this platform to discuss quality of leadership, experience sharing, and investing in areas of training and mentorship while underlining concrete recommendations. It is my sincere hope that we will continue to work harder and move towards actions aiming at building youth capacities for the Africa that we want. Am I talking to myself?
We can hear you.
Hello? Okay. Okay, thank you. And on the reflections on the previous speakers, I just wish to emphasize that the message is clear from Professor Lumumba. The message has been very clear on point that young people should not look at themselves as being young and cannot do much to develop Africa. But this is the time we take examples from our forefathers, the founding fathers of many African countries who fought for the independence of Africa while they were still young men and women. So the time for the young people is now. They can drive the development of Africa with the energy and the innovative minds that they have. So we have also many opportunities. People that are there are available to support initiatives by young people. So the space is open, opportunities are there, and we wish to invite and encourage young people to be active and really take their active roles in the development of Africa and also in transforming the change that we need on the African continent. I thank everyone and wish everyone a very successful dialogue as we share information between the young and the old on where we want to take the Africa that we want. Thank you so much and have a blessed day.
Thank you very much, Beatrice. It's always such a pleasure to listen to you. And we are excited about the commitment that COMESA has towards this process and even the guidance and leadership that you're offering to this process. We continue to celebrate the collaboration that we have and we'll continue to work together to ensure that we deliver a quality manual for the youth of Africa. Allow me at this moment to recognize the presence of the new executive director at First Kenya, Mr. Bastian Schulz. We are very happy to have you in the meeting. And we hope you are getting quite some enriched information from this conversation. First, we'll have a chance to speak a little later in the program. Ivan, maybe if you can quickly tell us about if you can quickly tell us about the links.
Okay. Yeah, Franklin is gonna post the links to the chat room. Guys, we would like to reach as many people and get them to participate in the sessions via social media. So the live stream is active. We have more than 200 people that are following from Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube channels. And we would like you to share that live feed with your network through your social media channels, so more people can benefit from this conversation on building the Africa we want. Just as Stella also asked me earlier, let me highlight in a few seconds why we've been through this process, and Stella said this, so I will just go straight to what we found out in phase 1 of this process, which was a targeted tailor-made study or tracer study, if you like, aimed at mapping who is doing what in Africa along the stream of building leaders among young people. And we did a continental scoping study that looks at who is contributing to leadership development. And then we also did a study on how enabling or disabling is the policy and social environment enabling for young people to actually have meaningful participation in leadership processes in Africa. We actually did what we call Operation Comb Africa. We wanted to see who is doing what. So the objective of that exercise and also this process was to ensure that the development of this training program eventually, for which this manual is meant, will not disregard what others are doing, but will add value and build on what exists. And this is what we found, and we continue to find. One, that there are so many initiatives that are targeting building leaders on the African continent among young people, and therefore Africa is not lacking leadership development initiatives per se. Two, that the initiatives existing are targeting specific themes of leadership, and others are targeting a mix of streams for leadership. And that the two observations we made are as follows. One, in our study, some of the leadership initiatives on the continent are the best you can find. For example, the African Leadership Initiative, the African Leadership University, and the University of Cape Town Emerging Leaders Training Program. They are the best that you can find globally. And the second finding that we think that this particular program will address with interest is that when you map all of the leadership initiatives on the continent, two things come striking. The most successful and well-known leadership interventions are non-African led, non-African initiated, non-African driven. And we will not mention them here, but that's a striking finding for a Pan-African initiative like this. So they are there, but the most prominent, most funded, most visible, most followed are non-African led and non-African driven, although they target African young people. And this means a lot for the future of this continent. And this is the major finding we found, and we decided that we will do then a Pan-African leadership development program, African-led, African-developed, African-driven for the African young people, for the Africa we want. And I think that, Stella, allow me to end there by submitting that.
Thank you very much, Ivan, and for actually giving all that information in a summary of what we found out when studying the existing programs. I will not even waste any more time. I'll quickly invite some of the proprietors of existing leadership programs that we have designed, who are actually going to be sharing two highlights of their leadership training programs. And basically what we ask these groups to do, and most of them, I would inform the audience, are the training programs that exist in the continent that were mentioned by the youth a lot as we were proceeding with the consultations. So I'm just going to invite them to make 2-minute speeches of exactly what two highlights are in their programs. Is it a training, is it a topic, or is it an experiential learning agenda that the beneficiaries appreciate the most? I am going to open this conversation with Program for Young Politicians in Africa. Program for Young Politicians in Africa was founded by a gentleman who had actually done a lot of work in terms of leadership training through NDI. And eventually he proceeded to set up the program himself and is now training in 3 countries in Eastern Africa with a view to expand into other countries. Emmy or Tim, if you could please tell us the 2 highlights of your program.
Hi, Stella.
Hi.
Thank you for the opportunity to be part of this conversation. And I think first I would like to say I associate very much with all the views that have been raised by the previous speakers in terms of the challenges and what needs to be done to improve on the kind of leaders that we want for Africa for the future. So I manage the program for young politicians in Africa that we run across 16 African countries, 7 Francophone countries, and then 7 Southern African countries, but I manage the Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzanian program in East Africa, where we work basically with political parties. So we recruit our participants through the political parties. And our goal is to increase youth participation and influence within the political space. And part of one of our highlights has been that if you look very much in terms of the alumni that we have trained over the years, now we have about 1,500 across the years that we've trained them. One of the glaring evidence has been for us is telling the young people that you don't solve political questions from the street. You must be deliberate in being intellectual. You must be deliberate in creating documentations for your intentions and what you want, and sitting on the table to negotiate what belongs to you. So as far as that is concerned, we have moved young people from being stakeholders to stakeholders in the political space. And we've been emphasizing that people will listen to you if you have something intellectual you bring to the table. So we've been pushing the youth leaders that we have worked with across the 16 African countries. And in East Africa, we're working actively with 21 political parties that have representation in parliament. And let me just highlight one of the areas that we focus on. One of the areas we focus on is ideology. We introduce the young people to what ideology is, its history, and what it means for a political party, because we are trying to institutionalize the role of a political party and what it needs to do. And the bigger challenge that we find with young people is that there's an organizational culture in political parties that emphasizes the need to be wealthy to be able to run and win a political office. Even more difficult for young women, because there's a combination of the challenge of being a young woman, not financially stable, but also the idea that men sexually harass a lot of young people. And that explains why we have very few young people who are willing to be part of the political space, because the patriarchal nature of the political space makes the political leaders think that they have a right over women. And these are part of the challenges we are facing when we try to inspire women to be part of this space. And when we talk about the Africa we want, part of what we want is a political space that protects women, that gives them the opportunity to believe that I can be part of this space, be productive, and also make a contribution to the continent. And I want to highlight some of the challenges for me I see as a leadership issue in the continent. One of the reasons we have all these leadership programs across the continent is because we have a leadership crisis. The leadership crisis, one is that you have an older group of men, especially, who have captured the state spaces, and they patronize everyone else who needs to participate in that space. Now, part of what we are trying to work towards is skill the young people and then let them intellectually create spaces for themselves and ask the tough questions. But that also means that at an individual level, you need to empower yourself to understand what needs to be done. Now, we all have a vision of what a good government looks like, what good leadership looks like. But the problem is that African leaders do not share that vision. And hello?
Because that you wrap up.
Okay. And so in terms of the future, and the challenge I see with all our programs that we run, one is that the requirements for participation are quite high and sometimes very elitist. Some of them are very high academic requirements that I think we need to think about. Secondly, some of them are very, if it is a business enterprise, a young person needs to have a business enterprise that is registered, pays taxes. And then thirdly, sometimes the thematic requirements are difficult for young people to be part of the process. So going forward in terms of developing a Pan-African Leadership Academy, I'm requesting that we lower it a little bit and bring it down to the grassroots to give an opportunity to young people to be part of this entire process. But also finally, for us to, in terms of visioning, we need to start anticipating where Africa will be 20 years from now. We have issues of urbanization, which come with crime. We have issues of natural resources. In future, we're going to have a problem with freshwater bodies. So in terms of developing programs, we need to start visioning and start thinking in terms of imparting knowledge, but also asking young people to think more futuristically on what they can do in terms of dealing with the challenges that we face as Africa. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Emmy. I'm sorry I had to rush you. It's just that we need to get just the highlights because most of the programs have quite a lot that they're doing. Okay. I'm going to invite the next speaker, who happens to be my friend, my sister, and also the executive director of the Emerging Leaders Foundation, Ms. Karen Wakoli. Those of you who do not know, this lady is running the Emerging Leaders program, and she happens to have even been recognized by President Obama himself for her work in the region. Karen, do you want to tell us what are the two highlights of your training program?
Thank you, Stella, and I am so happy to be part of this meeting. I have listened to the various speakers. I've learned a lot, and even from the young people in the chat room. I serve at Emerging Leaders Foundation. We're based here in Kenya, and our main focus is that we seek to grow and build and nurture the next generation of values-based leaders who will then lead dignity in not only in Kenya, but on the African continent. So two key highlights, and actually allow me to mention three, because the third one is also really, really important. The first one is self-awareness. So we have many modules, but from the feedback we have received so far, the module on self-awareness, which comes with storytelling, has been one of the most impactful for many young people. And this is why. In my own personal journey and in the journeys of many young people I have encountered, I have discovered that it's almost impossible to make a change in society if you do not know who you are, if you do not know your story, if you have not embraced your story. Each and every one of us, the 292 individuals on this platform and everybody else, we have stories. Our stories matter. Our stories are important. And our stories come with our ability to speak up. So what is key and what has been impactful, number one, has been self-awareness through storytelling. that is when most young people actually discover that, you know what, I have a voice or I have a story. This story, this experience, this person shaped who I am today. And that my story matters. And I have the power to be able to tell that story. That is one aspect. The other aspect that has been very impactful is the module on good governance, integrity, and Pan-Africanism. And you, Madam Stella, is actually one of the trainers for that particular program. And I've seen many others here like Titus and the others. Integrity is key, like many of the speakers who spoke before, Professor Lumumba and the others, they mentioned this. And we all know this very well. African challenges will be resolved by African solutions. And integrity and leadership is at the heart of that. Like John Maxwell puts it in his book about leadership. Everything rises and falls on leadership. So leadership is key, but not just leadership, but leadership with integrity, leadership that cares about people, leadership that listens to people. That is important. And conversations around integrity are also really, really impactful and have been really great. Pan-Africanism is really key as well. Oh my goodness, what makes you African? Is it just because you're born in Africa or you wear African prints? What makes you African? And what are you doing to make Africa a better place to live in? Now, the final one, Stella, that I wish to mention is mentorship. I am a product of mentorship. I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't even be running Emerging Leaders Foundation had I not been mentored, had I not found men and women who had gone before me, who have spoken into my life, who have guided me, who continue to guide me. And I, in turn, offer the same to the young people that I get to encounter. So each and every young person who comes into our leadership program gets paired up with a mentor in line with their areas of interest or areas of growth. And we're able to follow up every month to find out, how is the mentorship relationship going? How are you doing? Has there been any impact, or are there conflicts or personality clashes? And we're able to look through that and then make a few changes for them to then make sure that growth is happening. So those are some of the three components that are really, really key and very important. Over to you, Stella.
Thank you very much, Karen. Thank you for also doing it with precision. We appreciate your presence here. We appreciate your acceptance to speak in this forum and share with us the insights from your training program. Indeed, mentorship was highly mentioned during the regional consultations, and integrity has consistently found itself at the top of the list. Nelson Mandela School of Public Governance offers two training programs. They offer a training for emerging leaders, and they also offer a training for women in public policy. We have a representative who is also a friend of mine, and a very sweet soul, who has a bird's eye view of the program and is going to be able to share with us some of the two insights from this program. While she's presenting, she's also going to put a link to a video on the chat.
All right, sorry, I didn't hear the last part, Stella, but I assume I can proceed.
The last words were that you're going to post a video on the chat that people can watch later, and that the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you so much. Excellencies, colleagues, comrades, and friends, greetings to you all. I've been deeply inspired by all of the speakers today, and I'm grateful to share a little bit about the Emerging African Leaders Program at the Mandela School of Public Governance. The first phase of our program took place between 2015 and 2018. We've celebrated over 104 alumni from 10 African countries with a demonstrated track record in public leadership, from civil society to government, multilateral institutions, the business sector, in particular social entrepreneurship, and of course the arts. And the majority of our alumni are women. Their stories and their reflections inspired us to strengthen our focus on women's leadership, which led to the establishment of the Leading in Public Life Women Influence Power Program. And Stella is one of our proud women who we celebrate, amongst others. And that was in partnership with the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung. Subsequently, we've also launched another women's leadership development program with the South African Local Government Association. Our model of public leadership has focused on the following areas of agency, collaboration, integration, and innovation with the broad goal to transform our societies. I won't go into the details of each of these, but rather will focus on agency and collaboration for the purposes of this discussion. Well-being is a core component of agency, and the importance of collaboration links to the power of networks of solidarity. It's my strong conviction that for leaders to be effective, their physical, mental, emotional, social lives must be healthy and balanced. No one is ever in a constant state of balance, but it's important to regularly reflect and check in with yourself, an accountability partner, whether this is through coaching, which we offer, or mentorship, as Karen also talked to with their program. And you always need to be ready to ask yourself the tough questions and make tough decisions that you need to make to continue growing on your journey as a leader. Journaling is another important way to incorporate well-being practices daily. And we found that our alumni appreciated this exercise across all of our programs. It's difficult to exercise emotional intelligence, for instance, when our physical, mental, social well-being is spiraling out of control and you're frustrated. So it's really important to ensure that we're at harmony within ourselves and with the people around us. With regards to collaboration, it's this, as we've heard from Professor Lumumba and other speakers, is a critical time for young leaders to connect with others, to exchange ideas, develop strategies, and combine efforts to promote increased youth participation in every sphere, as well as to harness the opportunities provided by the African Continental Free Trade Area towards inclusive economic transformation, for instance, or the strategies that ensure young people are even able to participate in politics. We've seen that our alumni across cohorts have valued the opportunities to collaborate through research, sharing professional opportunities, bouncing ideas for new development programs, and other things as well. And our strategy, of course, was to create spaces for exchange through research, sharing professional opportunities, through research, roundtables, expert workshops, policy dialogues, conferences, and other forums to allow them to critique ideologies, to critique solutions, and to work together sometimes to develop new ideas. And I'll close off just by saying Professor Lumumba challenged us all to say, for how long? And I believe that for us to go far together, we need to link our arms, join hands, join forces to ensure that we reach the young people in rural areas who don't have funding, who don't have access to internet, who do not have the opportunity to participate in the programs we've designed so far, and to ensure that we're each carrying the load that is required to raise the platform for our young people. And we're open to collaboration. We love hearing about other people's stories. We love championing other people's causes as well. I will share my contact details, the video about the Emerging African Leaders Program, our alumni webzine in the chat shortly. And I look forward to hear from all of you. Thank you so much for this opportunity once again.
Thank you very much, Mabel. It's always a pleasure to hear from you. And thank you so much for sharing with us the highlights of the program. Indeed, the issue of wellness came up heavily, especially from Northern Africa. And some of the examples we're getting from South Sudan was that a lot of healing needs to happen before we push any of the young people from South Sudan to come and actually participate in leadership in the first place. And that applies to most of the jurisdictions that have conflict in the continent. So thank you for that. Next, I'm going to be inviting a very exciting program. Frederick Ebert Stephen is running a program called the Political Leadership and Governance Program. You may have heard me recognizing the presence of the executive director of the test, Mr. Bastian Schulz, who has been with us throughout this conversation. This goes to show the kind of commitment that they have towards empowering youth for political leadership and actually just giving young people skills to be able to participate in leadership. Of their program, and I probably should mention that Karen Wakoli, who just spoke, myself, and I saw Danny Shodongo on the chat, and I think Daniel Rogo are all alumni of the program. General Titus Kaloki, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much for this opportunity to speak, and I could not concur more with the earlier speakers, from the call to action by Prof and Mustafa, and also my colleagues sharing that there is need for us to engage as young people on having tangible solutions. So I'll give 2 highlights and make 2 recommendations on behalf of the Kenyan office, because we run this program in all our plus 20 offices in Africa, each is designing it as their context is, but socio-democratic driven. So the first highlight is that we are value driven. We are socio-democratic, so we champion freedom, justice, solidarity, and this helps to ground the ideology with which we approach the topics of discussion and even the interventions that the young people want to engage in. But more interesting is the second highlight, which is how we support the alumni to actually exercise the knowledge and the networks they've built during the training program. And for example, right now we have the alumni in Nairobi engaging with the Kenya Young Parliamentarians Association to tackle the issue of safety in public transport, because we see public goods as one of the missing asks across all Africa. And public transport being key to young people living in urban areas, being also the center of a lot of exploitation and harassments, they are working together to tackle this on a policy level, but also to spark public interest and shape public discourse that favors an end to these harassments. So in my recommendation would be for programs to look at how do you engage your alumni to do practical, take practical action in real life situation, in real life projects that impact the society. And secondly is how then do you cut that across not just your program, but also alumni from the other programs. And I'm happy we had preliminary discussions with David from Yali a while ago, and I urge us to seek bringing these cohorts that are graduating together for the Africa we want. Thank you.
Thank you very much, General Kaloki, for that. We actually appreciate your acceptance to speak here and your willingness to share the strengths of your program with the rest of the team. Indeed, we have been beneficiaries of the alumni support that is offered by PES, and we appreciate you for all the work you're doing for leadership development. This is definitely a start, and we shall have many opportunities to continue working together, and we'll definitely reach out to you to engage some more. Having said that, the next program that was supposed to be speaking today was the African Presidential Leadership Program by the President of Egypt. Unfortunately, our speaker, Professor Amor Sam Sukar, developed an emergency at about midday today and has requested. However, I have an alumni in the room who is going to give us 2 highlights of the program that he benefited from the program. The alumni also happens to be one of our mobilizers and collaborators in Northern Africa from Nile Youth Development Agenda. John Magok, Johannes, you have 2 minutes. Johannes, 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Stella. Good afternoon, everyone. And it's a great pleasure to be here. I'm John Johannes Magok, the Executive Director of the Nile Youth Development Action. And it's a great pleasure to partner with you lead in this young people-driven leadership curriculum. As a first batch of the African Presidential Leadership Program, and I was lucky to be also awarded by His Excellency Abdel Fattah el-Sisi in Egypt in 2019. It is a program that initiated by the President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi when he was the chairperson of the African Union in 2019. A promise that trained 1,000 young African leaders, and so far they trained 300. So as a takeaway from that program, the program addresses many aspects on emotional and social intelligence. We talk about the cultural heritage in Africa, It also gives courses on cybersecurity and green economy. But my key takeaway, it is on the cultural heritage of Africa, because as Africans, we need to know our identity, particularly the young people. Nowadays, technology is changing us, and we are adapting culture that is not ours. So it's good to reinforce our culture and heritage through training that we are receiving. The second one, it is on the design thinking model. For us to have solution for our problems, we need to co-create the solution ourselves. So that was a major stones for how we can push forward for giving a solution for African problems. So design thinking was really crucial and was also an important part of the training. Thank you very much. Over to you, Stella.
Thank you very much, Magog, for keeping it within the time frame requested. We appreciate you for that. Indeed, the question of our identity and our culture has come up severally in the conversation, and I'm pleased to hear that there are training programs that are actually highlighting that. The last speaker, again, was supposed to come from Yali. Those of you who participated in the consultations would know that Yali was mentioned in practically every single one of the consultations. Yesterday, we had confirmed the Chief of Party for West Africa, David Kamau, to come and speak, but then he could not get clearance from the headquarters to speak today. However, we have Abdullahi Haruna, who is an alumni from the West Africa program, who is going to give us 2 highlights of their training program. Haruna? You can unmute yourself, Haruna.
Thank you very much. My name is Abdullahi Haruna. Can you hear me?
Very well.
Okay, beautiful. I am from Nigeria. By extension, I am from Africa. So it's a pleasure to have this virtual interaction with co-Pan-Africanists. I'm a beneficiary of the Young African Leaders Initiative, a flagship program designed principally to actually build, leaders across business and entrepreneurship, public governance, and civic obligation. It's a program put together in honor of our own great legend, Nelson Mandela Madiba. So as a beneficiary of this program, the idea was to, get the necessary training, the honing, and come back to your host country or community and domesticate your experiences. So for us, our focus has been, the urgency to have an African self-actualization that will compete globally, in terms of global power. We are also, trying to raise leaders, African leaders that can actually transform the continent. We are, reawakening the cultural energy of Africans. What we do in my organization using the Open Dialogue Initiative is to use the social media to actually tell the stories of the positive aspects of life as far as business life is concerned, as far as governance is concerned, because lately we've discovered that the youths are totally disconnected from governance. What you hear from them lately is that kind of agitations. The youths, particularly in my country, hardly listen to what the government is doing. There's no partnership, there's no mentoring, there's that total distrust between the youths and the government. So what we are trying to do is to see how we can actually, up the ante by having people believe in their government, by having people leadership. If you are trying to change the status quo in your community or in your government, you're not supposed to antagonize the government in power. What you're supposed to do is to form that synergy. And I like what the Yali has been able to help us do. We have over 1,000, Yali graduates who are actually taking over the business community in Nigeria, who are actually taking over governance. As we speak, we have one of the youngest parliamentarian. It's a Yali member. We have people in the social and civic aspect of life who are also taking prominence in as far as decision making is concerned. So this is what we at our own end, we're trying to promote that enough of this, negativity. We cannot continue to be enablers of violence as young people. We can't continue to demonize our continent. We can't continue to be, conveyors of, Western ideologies, but how we can actually see that we create our own indigenous thinking. So this is what we do in Open Dialogue Initiative. We create that avenue where young people can actually begin to talk governance. They can talk business. They can talk civil participation without necessarily going to the negative or taking the violent path. Thank you.
While telling us how you're applying it in your program at Open Governance. That is highly, highly appreciated. Thank you very much for that. I want to give the floor to Lamin, if you're in the room. I have been trying to check if you're on the room, but I haven't seen your name, but I'm hoping you're here. Lamin Saidi Khan is from African Rising, and they have also been doing quite some work to promote youth contribution to leadership. Lamin, if you're here, the floor is yours. Lamin, okay, if Lamin is not in the room, then I'm going to open the floor to the rest of us. I'm not going to allow too many people to speak. I would want most of us to write our reflections in the chat room. And many of us as possible should actually take the opportunity to write in the chat room. I've been reading your comments, but then I would allow a few reactions from the floor if there's anyone who has any reflections to make about the conversation that we've had today and the points, especially the key points that have arisen in terms of training programs and topics that should be covered. Any reactions from the floor? You would have to lift up your hand, and once I select you, you get a chance to speak. So I have Anne Maua, I have Gauthier Kasongo, and I have Emmanuel. You'll all speak in half a minute so that we can see if we can get more. We'll start with Anne Maua.
Okay, thank you very much, Stella, for giving me this opportunity to share my reflections. Like you said, I'm Anne Maua from Mombasa. And for me, what is really striking was the fact that when you did your baseline, most of the programs that were cited were actually not African-owned and African-led. I think for me, that is really worrying. And that is why maybe this training manual is coming at the right time, where we need to have a program that is actually African-owned and African-led. What today, actually, coincidentally, I was watching a documentary, and they were saying that a lot of good Africans, or what you call resources, are actually in other continents. And so I feel like this is a great way of synergizing and concentrating or concerting all those efforts together to finally shape the African agenda under the African We Want Agenda 2063. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that, Anne Maua, and for doing it in a short while. Emmanuel Magoba, half a minute, please.
Thank you, Stella Aga, for moderating such a very wonderful and awesome event. I just like to probably ask you and your team if you can engage us widely, bring us to the platform, especially as youths who are now emerging the university in Africa, have many universities, and we would like to have a platform. So thank you, and kindly continue doing this.
Allow me to stop you. Your network is very bad, even though we get the gist of what you're requesting. So there's someone in the comment section to assist you in understanding how you can join, you lead, and participate in our program. So please find Clemence or Sebastian in the comment section, and they'll assist you. Can I quickly have Yahaya Musa Soje? Half a second.
Yeah, I am Musa Soje from Nigeria here. I think the program is very impressive, and I'm happy to be one of this conference. We would like you to share the manual for us to go through it. I think that is what I have to say. But I'm grateful and honored to be among the youth lead organization of this conference. Thank you.
Very much, Yahaya Musa. Rodwan Ibrahim in half a minute. Rodwan Ibrahim. If we don't, can I have Mohotu Kojane, and someone please mute Guy Quentin for me. Mohotu Kojane.
Okay, thank you, Stella. I was actually impressed by Prof. Lumumba when he was talking about for how long are we still going to follow, more especially in terms of technical and vocational skills. How are we leading it in South Africa so that we can stop following, or in Africa at large, following at all the time? Thank you.
Might someone please mute Guy Quentin Gwema for me? You're getting too much noise from his side. Nancy Muruki, I'll give you the last opportunity.
Thank you, Stella. Did you talk about Nancy Muriuki? I can't hear you very well.
Nancy Muriuki, I'll give you the last opportunity. Please speak quickly.
Hello, Stella?
I can hear you.
This is Nancy Muriuki. Should I speak now?
Chance to Damaris Aswa in half a minute.
Stella?
Damaris Aswa.
Hi, Stella. Can you hear me? Yes, my name is Damaris Aswa. I work for Kesho Kenya organization in Kilifi. I'm actually impressed by all the speakers, and one thing I got from it is that we must be motivated by the desire to do good, and that at times it's important to critique, but at the same time, when you're criticizing, you need also to provide solution. And I also learned that integrity and leadership have just come out to be like things that we need also to work on, because I want to believe that integrity starts with me before I even advocate it to other people. So that is what I've gotten from this. Thank you.
Very much, Damaris Aswa, for that. And sorry, Nancy, we couldn't allow you to speak because your network was not so good and we don't have time. I have some reflections in the chat room. There are people who are saying they cannot afford. Joseph Manzi is saying, Stella, is there someone please to add us to the WhatsApp group? We cannot afford to disconnect from such an interaction. If you have put your name and contact in the chat section, involved in the decisions, and we shall ensure that you are updated on what's going on. I also see a few other people saying that they want to be put in a WhatsApp group. I don't know about a WhatsApp group, but we're going to advise you on how we will proceed from here. I understand from my colleague that they have created a link for WhatsApp that is going to be shared to all of you. So kindly look out for that. Which is it going to be posted on the chat, or you're going to send it to the group individually?
What, Stella? I missed your question.
The WhatsApp link going to be shared on the chat, or it's going to be shared to the contacts individually?
The link is already posted on the meeting chat, and Kazeneza can post it again for those who missed it. Thank you.
I see it now.
We have two polls that are going to be launched now. One, this process, and the other is just one questions about if members have heard about it.
Evan, we lost you at the end.
We have two short polls that are going to run. We would appreciate having their voices. One on whether they want to say something more that they may say in the session about this program, and the other two questions.
Hello guys, how are you doing? Thank you very so much.
Whether they have heard about the CF.
Thank you. Evan, continue.
I'm done, Stella.
Okay, thank you. So you'll tell us when you're ready to launch the poll, but while you're at it, let me embark on maybe doing a small summary of what is going to happen after today. I am so sorry we did not have enough time for the audience to make their input. We would have loved to have so many of you speaking. I would really appreciate if most of you would type in your comments in the comment section, especially those who just want to say that they're grateful they have been involved in this process. It would be nice if we just post it on the chat room so that we don't have to spend time, because we also have no time left. If we continue with this conversation, our Portuguese and French speakers and the Arabic speakers will not be getting translation. Moving forward, we are going to gather all the feedback that has been given here, all the comments you have written in the chat room, all the recordings that have come up here, and we're going to compile them into a report for this meeting. We will also proceed to gather information, critical information that has come out that is useful for the manual, that then will go into the manual. We are going to embark on a process to finalize that and ensure that the reports are ready. And since we have your contacts, we shall share that with you. Ivan has already opened the poll, so it's at the bottom of your screen. If it hasn't popped up on your computer right now, it's at the bottom of your screen next to the share screen button. On the right side, it says polling. Just click there, and then you shall be able to participate in the poll. Fill out the answers to all the questions, and then click submit at the end of the poll. The other thing is that the poll is also going to be launched in French at some point, so please make a point of filling out the poll before you leave the room, and also submit. Of course, having cleared that, if you're using your phone to log on, then if you're using an iPhone, at the top of your screen, you'll see the word polling going on. So tap onto that word and it's going to open the poll. Click, select the speakers you want to see in the program and all the other answers, and then submit, and then we'll sample your answers. Those of you who are using Android, again, it's going to appear on your screen. Please just make sure you participate in the poll before you depart from the meeting. At this point, I'd like to appreciate everyone who has worked and contributed towards making this meeting a success. We could not have done this alone, so we really appreciate the collaboration of the collaborating organizations that we are working with, including the Nile Youth Development Agenda, the J-Act, the Youth Hub Africa, Southern Africa Youth Forum, the SADC Youth Council. I hope I have mentioned all the other ones from the other regions. And then, of course, the East Africa Community Youth Ambassadors Platform, which is also our main partner in crime and the people we collaborate with in designing all the e-lead programs and even in implementing them. I would also want to appreciate our partners in this project who have supported us throughout and have been with us throughout this conversation. Notice that we still have His Excellency Ambassador Salah in the room at the end of the conversation. I mean, this is not something we take for granted. We have Magda in the room at the end of the conversation. This is not something we take for granted. And then, of course, our colleagues from COMESA, and then the Swedish Development Corporation, who have consistently worked with us and continue to support us in this process. We commit that we're going to give our best energies and our best input into this process so that we do not disappoint you, and so that you can match up the commitment that you have made. Appreciation to all the speakers, Professor P.L.O. Lumumba, and sincere appreciations to Mr. Njie, who also took time to address this meeting. And then, of course, my very sincere appreciation to all the speakers who made it to speak at the opening. Our own Executive Director, Ms. Makena Mubobia, Madam Annunciata, thank you very much, and Madam Annunciata Ndikumasabo, thank you very, very much, Ambassador Salah, and thank you very much, Ms. Beatrice Hamusonde, for all making it to this conversation. At this point, in the event that I have not remembered to mention you, and you actually played a huge role in making this process a success, it is not because your contribution was not important. It is because I probably have to think through everyone I need to appreciate in a very short while. But we appreciate all of you. I also must appreciate our translators who have done an excellent job of translation. It was flawless. You didn't even notice it was what was going on in the room. We highly appreciate all of you, Alex, Marcel, and Ramadan. I would also want to appreciate the ULID team. We have been running helter-skelter to put this together in a very short time, and I'm glad everyone threw in their weight and ensured that we got everything running. If I haven't mentioned you, it is not because your contribution is not important. It is just because we're out of time, and of course, possibly because I have forgotten for now, but we appreciate all of you. Definitely the youth who have come into this platform. This is not the end of the conversation. You may notice that we were live streaming on Facebook and on YouTube. Kindly go and leave your comments there. If you think about something later on out of inspiration, just make sure you include it in the chat room, and we're going to be sampling all those all the feedback, and we'll ensure that we incorporate everything that comes up, even in the comment section of the Facebook page and the YouTube page. So please go and write your comments there, and we shall ensure that we incorporate your thoughts. We will definitely be inviting you very soon for a validation of a training manual that will come out of all these conversations that we have had. From me, thank you all for your cooperation. You have made my job easier than it would have been with the kind of numbers of people we have in the room. I appreciate all of you for your cooperation and for your contribution. With that, Beatrice, if you have a good video that you can play for us, this would be a good time. The guests can leave at their own leisure, and I'm going to request Beatrice to play a video so that we can continue watching. The rest of you, feel free to finish your poll before you leave.
MC Benny.
Come on, East Africa. This a party.
Tell them. Afrika Mashariki. Twaja pamoja.
From country to country, yeah. We gotta work together. We are leaders now. Aiming high for the better together. To make the nations greater. Sharing to empower. So you lead, I lead, we lead together. So you lead, I lead, we lead together. We will lead, let your dream be a reality. We will lead, let your dream be a reality.
Together we'll shape with responsibility as young people with ability. Here we are to take the opportunity to raise the flag of East Africa. Together with love, together with peace, together respond to our need, together transform our community as we see light and a brighter future. Let's join hands for youth and women. Let's join hands for youth and women.
Afrika Mashariki yote twaungana, vijana vijana toka Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Burundi hadi South Sudan na Rwanda. Twaja pamoja ili fanye nini? Vijana wote.
I lead, we lead together. So you lead, I lead, we lead together. We will lead, let your dream be a reality. We will lead, let your dream be a reality.
This Commercial Youth Leaders Bootcamp is the first of its kind that MSCCDC has hosted, and it came about through, partnership and collaboration with Commercial Youth Leaders when they saw our Youth Lead Summit, which happens every November of every year. So they wanted to collaborate and see how do we bring together youth from the Commercial countries into a space and have them really interrogate the concept and it came about. So they wanted to collaborate and see how do we bring together development. So the boot camp was a response to that. That how about we have an interrogation on and it came about. So they wanted to collaborate and see how do we bring together development. So the boot camp was a response to that. That how about we have an interrogation on and it came about. So they wanted to that how about we have an interrogation on